Welcome back, everyone, to The Deep Dive. This time, we're going to be taking a look at Sylvia Ola's article, Poor Leadership. Do a team-building activity. And I got to say, this article really got me thinking. Like, it's challenging a lot of the assumptions I had about teams and how they work.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. It's definitely a thought-provoking piece. What I really appreciate about Ola's approach is that she doesn't just scratch the surface. She goes deep, digging into those root causes of team dysfunction.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's why I love these deep dives so much. We really get to unpack these ideas. So right off the bat, Ola tackles this big fallacy that team problems are, like, solely an employee issue.
Right.
She argues that this mindset is a total cop-out for leaders.
It's like they're saying, oh, my team's not doing well, so it must be the employee's fault. But Ola's saying, no, 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 it's the leader who sets the tone. They create that environment, that culture, and that's what makes or breaks a team.
It's really interesting, right? Because she's not just talking about individual employees. She's saying the whole dynamic, the whole team dynamic comes from the leadership style.
Absolutely. And she uses this great analogy in the article. She compares it to building a house on a foundation of sand. You might have the best materials, the best workers, but if that foundation is weak, the whole thing's going to crumble.
Oh, I love that analogy. So, like, if we're applying that to teams, you're saying even with a group of talented people, if they're working under a leader who's not effective, they're probably going to struggle.
Totally. And here's the thing. Ola points out this irony about the team building industry. It's worth billions of dollars. We spend so much money on these fun activities and workshops, but are we addressing the root cause? The leadership.
It's like putting a Band-Aid on a broken leg.
Right.
You're doing something, but you're not really addressing the real issue.
Exactly. And that leads us to this really interesting story that Ola shares in the article about a restaurant. It has this toxic young chef and some really interesting leadership decisions. And it really highlights what happens when you ignore those early warning signs of team dysfunction.
Okay, so let's dive into this restaurant story. What's going on here? Paint us a picture.
Okay, so imagine this. You've got this bustling restaurant, amazing food, great views, and their marketing is bringing in tons of customers. But behind the scenes, behind all the glitz and glam, things are a mess. The article talks about this 25-year-old chef, and get this, he's like the face of the restaurant.
Huh.
Yeah, the marketing face.
Hmm.
But he's creating this really toxic work environment.
Wow, that's quite a contrast, right? This, like, charming public image. But behind the scenes, it's toxic. What were some of the red flags that people were missing?
Well, the article mentions high turnover, which is never good, right? And there were complaints about the chef's behavior, this general sense that people just weren't happy. Plenty of warning signs, but they were either ignored or, downplayed.
It sounds like it. So what about the restaurant manager? How are they handling all of this?
This is where it gets really interesting. She seemed genuinely surprised by the feedback she got in an employee engagement survey. Like, really surprised. The feedback was overwhelmingly negative, and she was questioning why everyone was so unhappy.
Oh, wow. That's almost unbelievable. It's like she was completely oblivious to what was happening, despite all those signs.
Right, so it makes you wonder, was she just choosing to ignore it, or was she really that out of touch? Who knows? But anyway, her initial response was at least promising. She met with the staff to get their feedback, which, is a good first step.
Yeah, sounds like it. So she knows there's a problem. She's trying to understand it. But then what happens?
Well, this is where things take a turn. Instead of dealing with the root cause of the problem, the chef's behavior and her own lack of awareness, she decides to throw a yacht party for the entire staff.
A yacht party. Really?
Yep. A yacht party. And sure, it might sound like a fun day out, but does it actually solve the problems within the team? No. It's like what Ola calls a Band-Aid solution.
So she's saying these team-building activities, while they can be fun, are often just distractions from what's really going on.
Exactly. And she takes it a step further and questions if that's even what employees really want.
I mean, a party's great and all, but is that really going to solve things like, toxic behavior or bad communication?
Right. And Ola actually suggests that instead of assuming we know what employees want, we should focus on creating a work environment where they feel safe, and respected and empowered to actually do their best work.
Yeah.
And that starts with, addressing those uncomfortable truths head on and not just trying to sweep them under the rug with something fun to distract everyone.
So we're ditching the Band-Aids then.
Yeah.
What's the real solution? What does Ola propose as a better alternative to these, quick fixes?
This is where I think Ola's argument gets really powerful. You know, she advocates for radical honesty and transparency
Right.
as the key to building these high-performing teams.
Oh.
It's about moving beyond the surface level stuff and actually having those conversations that might be tough,
Yeah.
but are ultimately necessary.
That makes me think about what you said earlier about leadership being the foundation.
Uh-huh.
It sounds like Ola's saying that honesty is like a crucial element
Yeah.
of building a strong foundation for any team.
It is. She argues that leaders have got to be willing to have those tough conversations about performance and behavior and expectations.
Yeah.
And it's not just about giving feedback.
Right.
It's about creating a culture where feedback is welcomed and people feel comfortable speaking up and even challenging the status quo.
Okay, I could see how that would be really beneficial in the long run, but wouldn't that potentially lead to conflict? I mean, not everyone's comfortable with direct feedback, right?
Yeah, no, that's a valid concern. And Ola acknowledges that these conversations can be challenging. But she argues that avoiding them just makes things worse in the long run.
Okay.
It's like ignoring a small crack in the foundation of your house.
Right.
It might seem insignificant at first, but if you leave it alone, it can lead to a major collapse down the road.
Yeah, so it's about having the courage to just address those uncomfortable truths head on,
Right.
even if it's awkward or uncomfortable in the moment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And she makes this interesting point about how we often treat children versus adults.
Okay.
You know, we shield kids from the truth, Santa Claus the Tooth Fairy, because we think we're protecting them.
Yeah.
But when it comes to adults,
Right.
especially in the workplace, she says we need to drop the kid gloves and be more upfront.
So for adults, it's like Ola's saying we need to just ditch all that and just be more upfront.
Exactly. Ola argues that adults can handle difficult truths, and actually shielding them from reality can be more damaging than helpful. Think about it. When have you been in a situation where someone was clearly beating around the bush, not being direct about a problem? It usually creates more confusion and anxiety than if they had just been straightforward.
Yeah, that's so true. It's like that feeling when you know something's wrong, but you can't figure out what it is.
Right.
You start to question everything, and it can be really unsettling.
Exactly. And that's why Ola is advocating for this culture of open communication where
Yeah.
people feel safe to voice their concerns and raise issues without being afraid of, any kind of retribution.
Yeah.
This honesty is not about being harsh or insensitive.
Right.
It's about fostering a culture of mutual respect where constructive feedback is seen as a way to grow both individually and as a team.
So it's less about delivering criticism and more about just creating that space where open dialogue is encouraged and actually valued.
Exactly. It's about shifting the mindset from blame and shame to learn and grow.
I could see how that would be a game changer for a team.
Yeah.
So what would you say are some practical steps that leaders can take to foster this kind of honesty and transparency?
Yeah, it really feels like we've uncovered something valuable here. We started with this idea of throwing parties to fix problems, and now we're realizing that real honest communication is the foundation
Yeah.
of a strong team.
It is.
Yeah.
And that's really Ola's point, right? She believes that we underestimate how mature and resilient adults in the workplace are.
Yeah.
We assume they can't handle these tough conversations, so we try to shield them from the truth.
But as we've been talking about, that kind of coddling can backfire.
Right.
Avoiding these conversations usually creates more anxiety and mistrust than it prevents.
Absolutely. And that's where leadership is so important.
Yeah.
It takes real courage to create a space where people feel safe enough to be honest, even when it's uncomfortable.
So how can leaders start to cultivate this kind of environment? What are some things they can actually do?
Well, first and foremost, it starts with self-awareness.
Leaders need to take a look at their own communication style. Are they modeling the honesty and transparency they expect from their team?
That's a really good point. You can't expect your team to be open and honest if you're not doing it yourself.
Exactly. And beyond just personal communication, it's about setting those clear expectations for the whole team. Make it clear that honest feedback is valued, and create ways for giving and receiving feedback that feel safe and constructive.
And this is where Ola's point about avoiding Band-Aids really comes full circle, right?
Yeah.
Instead of trying to cover up problems with a party or a team building, activity leaders need to tackle those issues head on.
Exactly. Those quick fixes might make people feel better temporarily, but they don't address the real problems.
This has been such an eye-opening conversation. It's so easy to fall into the trap of those easy solutions and distractions, but building a truly high-performing team really requires honesty and open communication.
It does. And that's why Ola's article is so important. It pushes us to think beyond those simple solutions and embrace a more thoughtful approach to leadership.
One that values truth and allows teams to face their challenges directly.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with something to think about. Think about your own experiences. Have you ever been part of a team where communication felt dishonest or stifled? How did that affect your work? And more importantly, what's one thing you can do this week to bring more honesty and transparency to your own team? Maybe it's having that tough conversation you've been avoiding, or simply being more aware of how you communicate. Remember, change starts with each of us.
That's a great point. It's been a pleasure examining this topic with you.
Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive. Until next time, keep diving deeper.